Hello, everyone. Welcome to WinCat Sports. Today, we are going to go a little bit into the college form of football instead of the NFL. And we're going to actually talk about Jim Harbaugh and his suspension. It is self-imposed by Michigan after all the mumbo jumbo that's been going on throughout the offseason with him and his cheeseburger fiasco that's going on. They say he's lying about it because he said he didn't fully know about it, or that the fact that a cheeseburger would be that much of a problem. But Michigan getting ahead of the NCAA has given him a 3-game suspension.
Yeah, it's a joke, but the NCAA has been a joke for a while. I guess they're just looking to take it out on Harbaugh or something like that, and then Harbaugh beat him to it. For what? A cheeseburger.
Some people.
It's just ridiculous that some people get punished for, and the punishment just never seems to fit the crime or something.
Some people believe, like my uncle believes.
Doesn't matter. They're not playing anybody the first 3 weeks, so we could coach the team. Probably be.
Some people believe it's more than just the cheeseburger, but in reality, no matter what division of football you're in, whether you're Big Ten, SEC, Pac-12, everybody is doing stuff to try and convince a player to show up and play for their school, especially with the deals that are going on and people can actually make money through football. So what is the point if someone gets someone a cheeseburger? If that's all it is, that is ridiculous. Speaking of, as you mentioned, the first 3 games, the games he's suspended for are East Carolina, which is should be a win.
Right.
UNLV, which should be a win, and Bowling Green, which again should be a win. Harbaugh or not, you should win all 3 of those. It would be a disappointment regardless, and Michigan can't say, oh, it's because Harbaugh wasn't there if they did lose these games.
That's pretty sad. But, we've talked about the schedule before. Hopefully it gets better when we get more teams in. But, it's just, a pointless thing. So I don't even know if we're going to pay attention much. We'll watch it because, we're supposed to comment on it and stuff like that. But, if they lose to any one of those 3 teams, that's pretty sad.
The reviews for each game probably be about 5 minutes until I start working on nighttime, and then you probably won't ever see it because I won't be watching the games as much. But he does return for the Big Ten play, which again is just against Rutgers, Nebraska, and then I think your first big test and somebody who's being undervalued in Minnesota. I think Minnesota will be your first actual game of the season.
Right.
They're not ranked. They have been decent the past few years. I think they could win the West, but at the same time, right, they might not.
Yeah, it's getting harder. Sports has become, it's been for a very long time now, a big business. And you're going to have corruption, a lot of corruption. There's no loyalty for the most part. You have some individuals that have some loyalty to some teams. Sometimes I'm not saying, like everyone is, bad, but it's kind of, you can't let you just get too worked up over all this stuff. You cheer for the colors, you cheer for, the team, and, if they provide you enjoyment, that's good enough. It's a sad reality, but, what are the rivalries now anymore? Michigan, Ohio State. So we got one thing. Maybe MSU has really fallen on bad times, so it's hard to call that a rivalry, but it's interstate. Yeah, and I don't mean to say that MSU isn't important. I want them to do well. I want Ohio State to do well. I want these games to actually be competitive. Ohio State will be competitive. I'm sure
it should be. If it's not for either standpoint of either organization, that'd be disappointing.
It's a sad thing that we don't have more games like that. I'm looking forward to USC and UCLA and Oregon and teams like that.
They're going to add more.
I want to see more big games.
So what I like about what the Big Ten is doing, outside of the fact that Notre Dame is going to kind of play each team again for a little bit, not all at the same time, but each year they're going to be playing a different Big Ten team. they are trying to figure out the best way to keep those regional rivalries with Washington and Washington State and Oregon State, despite them most likely not being in the division. And as bad as it is that, yes, it's not the greatest for college football with all this realigning and separating. And basically, what I see is the Big Ten and SEC trying to separate themselves from the NCAA
Right.
and
And you
actually having control over the game. And you're not getting these ridiculous suspensions that happen or whatever goes about it, right? A player should be able to make money off their likeness and stuff like that
sure,
because, yes,
but
you're getting to go to school, but it's also ends up being a job.
right. I mean, how much longer with all this transfer portal stuff and everything else? Are you going to be able to trade players in college
I would assume
and
that's
stuff like
never going to
that?
be something that
Yeah.
can happen, but
I mean, I don't understand it right now. That's already kind of. I would think
if
that's up
I
to the
was
kid to want
the
to go to a school.
if I was the NCAA right now, and if everything is still kind of going to stay together, when it comes to the transfer portal, I would set a limit of how many times a player can enter the transfer portal. Because
I
you got some who will transfer each year.
mean, the kid has a right, I guess, if
Yes,
somebody offers them something else. This
but you
is
can't.
supposed to be a free market society and stuff like that, so you should be making money
Yes,
after high school. That's kind of their job. They make money for the school, so why can't they get a piece of it? Um, but at the same time, it's when money is the main motivation for everything. It loses some of its appeal to the fan.
yeah,
Um,
and that's why.
Especially at college level. I mean, we want
Well, yeah, when it comes to college, if the games aren't entertaining, no one's really going to pay attention to it, let alone any other college sport besides football.
right. I mean,
Right? How many of you out there are paying attention to college baseball as much as you would football or even basketball? Right? You're not really paying. You have no idea what goes on with college baseball until you randomly see the College World Series on.
right.
Right? And you have no idea what happens with that. So if
And
say,
people don't have all the time in the world to keep up with everything. There's only so many hours in the day and so much you can pay attention to. It's just the nature of everything, too. I don't, I mean, football's a big time thing. It's fun, it's enjoyable. They should do everything they can to give us as many good matchups as possible.
mhm.
Um, I don't think it should be that important that you're undefeated, and that's
and,
the only way that you'll
and
get into the
and
bowl
that's the
champion.
one thing where
And they're expanding the playoffs, right?
yes, they are going to expand it to 12. But the one thing that I think can make it entertaining is relegation, if you know what relegation is,
Mhm,
with how they do it in Europe with soccer.
mhm.
Could you imagine if you had the worst two teams in the Big Ten get replaced with the best teams in the MAC and then the best team, I guess, in the Mountain West for that Pacific Coast?
Yeah,
Right? And then would it be bad? Yeah, it's going to screw over some colleges, but guess what? You're going to be more competitive. You could see Central Michigan all of a sudden in the Big Ten, and then over in the West, Boise State all of a sudden showing back up.
right. And the ever elusive Notre Dame should be forced into going into a conference. It
And
shouldn't
they
be their
likely would be in
choice
the
anymore.
ACC. If they ever
There
join a
shouldn't be any
conference,
independence.
if they ever join a conference, it's the ACC because in both basketball and I believe baseball, they're in the ACC. The only division where they're in the Big Ten is hockey. Otherwise, football, they're not. Right?
We're geographically you
Would
know,
that be the favorite for them? But if you're planning on being more out west, you're not going to
right.
add
Could you
Notre Dame.
imagine a schedule of Notre Dame, Penn State, even Purdue? I like Purdue. That's not a bad team. You all play Purdue, Iowa, Ohio State, USC, Oregon. You got all these schools. I mean, if that was what you were coming against every week, even it would be fun. It would be far more fun than what we're going to be
And
witnessing over the first
and
half
that's
of the
actually
season.
what you kind of get to see next year since we're
I
still
hope.
staying on the schedule, you're only going to have two cupcake games next year for Michigan
Good.
wise because you're going to play Texas.
Good. That's what we want. Let's see some fun matchups. And like I said, I'm sick of this. It just seems like
The
it's set up for only a few teams to win. And now with 12 playoff teams, you're going to have more competition.
mm-hmm.
I don't, I
I
mean,
think
I like having
so.
teams, traditional teams doing well most years. That's fine. but it shouldn't be just so obvious
And-
who the guys are going to be at the top, like
And,
Georgia and
and since
Alabama.
we are going into playoff talk and talking about that college football expansion, another thing I would propose that I've heard is make home playoff games. Imagine having a home playoff game in Ann Arbor.
That would be great.
You make a bowl game happen in Ann Arbor. You can keep the name of whatever it is, right?
Well, okay, so if you have 12, then that's 6 games.
So your
You have
top
6
four,
bowl games that'll mean something.
your top 4 get a bye. That's how it works. So the 8 bottom teams play, top 4 get a bye.
Okay.
That's how that's going to work. But like I said, if you have a home playoff game in Ann Arbor, you have a home playoff game in Alabama, right? Or Georgia,
Right.
or even a smaller school randomly makes it to the top 4 and they get a playoff game. And that's the only way I could also give like the excuse for a cupcake game. Because when Appalachian State beat Michigan, if they would have went undefeated that year, and the college football playoff was that year, they would have a reason to have an argument. We beat a powerhouse school.
Right.
So then that's the only reason I could give any excuse to the cupcake games is maybe the smaller school can make that upset, and that is a big story. But most of the time that doesn't happen. But with that being said, right, if you like what you see, leave a like, comment, subscribe, right, share the video around, and then I hope to see everybody soon.